It's Nintendo Switch 2 Eve. With just days to go until the launch of Nintendo's next console, we're sharing our biggest hopes and fears for the launch. Coming up after these messages on Next Gen Console Watch. Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything happening with the latest gaming hardware. And there is new gaming hardware out in just a few days. It's the Nintendo Switch 2. It is finally almost here. I'm Daemon Hatfield from IGN GameScoop. As always, I'm joined by the usual suspects, Ryan McCaffrey from Unlocked, Max Scoville from Beyond. And we're here to share our hopes and fears for the Nintendo Switch 2 launch, which is exactly 1 week from the day that we are taping this episode. So, Ryan, let's start with you. What are some of your hopes for the Nintendo Switch 2 launch?
Well, I think everybody might be able to guess what I'm going to say for the hope, and that is that we get the next mainline 3D Mario game sooner rather than later. I'm going to keep screaming it until Nintendo announces it. I wonder, is Donkey Kong Bonanza going to be kind of meant to be a stopgap to try and satiate us 3D platforming fans for a while, or is Mario going to show up soon? This fall is his 40th anniversary, at least as far as the release of the original Super Mario Brothers in the US. So it's time, Daemon. Again, 8 years. Every day we get further away from Super Mario Odyssey, which remains a 10 out of 10 in my book, which is exactly what I gave it when I reviewed it for IGN. And the thing about Nintendo, the reason that I keep harping on this is because Nintendo is so good at reinventing Mario, the mainline 3D Mario game. They just reinvent it every time. So it's just always new. It's always exciting. I love Odyssey so much, and I want another mainline 3D Mario game. So that's one. And if the puppy will allow me to get to my notes here for the second one, here's what I've got on the list. I hope that, kind of on that same note, that we get more than one mainline 3D Mario and Zelda, because we only got one for Mario, obviously, and we did get two Zelda games, though, just bookending the Switch 1 generation with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But I wonder, like, is best case scenario that flips, that maybe we get a mainline 3D Mario at the beginning and end, and then just one Zelda in there, since obviously they just shipped Tears of the Kingdom not too long ago. So we'll see. But that's what I've got for my very one-track mind with hopes for the Switch 2 generation.
I couldn't agree more about the next 3D Mario Odyssey. I think is the best 3D platformer ever made. I don't know. Logan Plant, who's the host of Nintendo Voice Chat, our Nintendo podcast, who would be here if he weren't on a top secret mission, which will be relevant to all of our viewers. And
what could it possibly be?
Yeah, what could it possibly be 1 week away from the launch of the Switch 2? He does not think that the next 3D Mario will be this year. He thinks that team is actually the one behind Donkey Kong Bonanza, and we'll have to wait a little bit longer for Odyssey 2 or whatever it's called. But I think this fall, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Switch 2 version of Mario Wonder, which has not been announced yet. I think maybe that'd be an easy win for them this holiday season.
I'll take a 2D Mario as well. I'm not, beggars can't be choosers, but man, am I psyched for whatever the next 3D Mario is.
Yeah, I am too. Max, what are some of your hopes for the launch of Nintendo Switch 2?
So I hope this thing is powerful enough that it can get kind of long-term support from third parties. There's obviously was a pretty big gap between the PS5 and the Xbox Series and the Switch 1. It was definitely showing its age toward the end there, but I hope that this thing has enough under the hood that it can sustain itself for a cool minute, and that we can see kind of maybe a return to form of when it used to be like the stuff that came out on Xbox and PlayStation also came out on the Nintendo platform at the time. And the Switch did get some interesting ports. Like, I think it's still just a miracle that The Witcher 3 runs on there at all. It probably not the best way to play it, but it's still really cool they managed to fit that on there. Stuff like Hogwarts Legacy, again, it's interesting to see how games are scaled, but if the Switch 2 can get the proper install base to be worth the trouble, that could kind of be like maybe it's a lowering tide sinks all ships, but in a good way. I feel like we've seen ballooning costs of ridiculously high fidelity AAA, quadruple A games on the PS5 and Xbox Series. And if the Switch 2 is enough competition and it's powerful enough that we can kind of sort of split the difference, like maybe things get scaled back a teeny bit so that the Switch can kind of keep up. I'm not saying that games should all kind of take a dip in graphics. I'm kind of hoping that the Switch is sort of, again, kind of everyone's kind of meeting in the middle there, because we got a lot of great indie games on the Switch. Some last gen stuff made its way over, but it would be nice to be, one of those situations where you can, the hot new game comes out and you go, well, where do I want to play this? I'd like to take it on the go. I'm going to take it on Switch. And it's not like the thing where we get I feel like with a lot of, I want to say Persona did this a few times. We've got to, there'd be like a year or two wait before it came to Switch. And we got kind of a, pared down version running on the original Switch. But it'd be nice if we got kind of day and date, big games coming to all three platforms, like in the days of yore. I think that'd be nice.
Yeah, there's a robust third-party support at launch, but we'll see how that continues into the months and years ahead. But I imagine, or I have a pretty good feeling, if it's a success like the original Switch was, I think third parties will want to be on board.
Another hope, and this is completely going the other direction, I hope that for the proprietary special features that the Switch 2 has, I feel like by Nintendo standards, it's fairly safe. But it has mouse support, it has touchscreen support, it has accelerometers, it has all this stuff, it has all these proverbial bells and whistles, and I hope we see some games take really creative, interesting advantage of that. I always loved when Vita games would do interesting stuff with the front and back touchscreen and the camera and all that. The Switch 2 has a camera now. It's sold separately, but it's still a feature there. Obviously, we've seen cameras attached to other consoles, but I feel like Nintendo is the kind of platform that really does foster weird, kooky, unique game design. So it would be nice to see this thing be enough of a safe bet that developers feel good, really, making big swings that takes full advantage of the hardware at hand.
And Max, on your third party point, remember back with Soul Calibur 2 when all three platforms got a unique character and it was otherwise still like the same core awesome game? Like I believe it was Link on GameCube. It was unfortunately I think it was Spawn on the Xbox, which was ridiculous.
Wasn't Spawn Dreamcast?
Oh man, well the commenters will surely know, which I don't off the top of my head. I just, but yeah, those were fun times.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's especially cool that the Hitman World of Assassination trilogy or World of Assassination coming to Switch day one. That is an amazing series of games, and I love that as like a pre-order bonus they have not Mario and not Luigi costumes as a pre-order bonus, which is just very cute. I love seeing that sort of just Nintendo stuff sprinkled in. Like it's always kind of cute to see that. So I hope we get, more things like that in there.
Yep. Agreed on all accounts. I hope Joy-Con drift is not a thing. I know Nintendo says they've addressed this. Kind of remains to be seen if they can hold up after, months and years of use. I hope the $80 price tag is rare. The price tag that's on Mario Kart World. I hope maybe Nintendo will relegate that to, maybe like just their top tier titles, maybe once a year or something. We'll see about that. Of course, we're getting GameCube support on Nintendo Switch Online on Switch 2. And there's a couple games that haven't been announced that I hope to see. I want to see Star Wars Rogue Leader, which I still thinks looks very impressive even today. And then Ryan, there's Burnout games on GameCube. There are Burnout games on GameCube that could come to Nintendo Switch Online.
Eternal Darkness, please. Yeah, please and thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's some hopes. Ryan, are there any fears you have one week out from Switch 2? My fear is matching your hope. You're hoping to not have Joy-Con drift issues on the thumbsticks. My fear is that will persist. So yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. I just hope that is something that Nintendo has. I mean, they've known about it since the very beginning of the Switch 1 generation when they had controllers out in wide enough numbers that this problem started popping up. So hopefully in the last, 7-8 years, they've engineered a proper solution to it. And it's not going to be something that plagues us all in the coming years here with the Switch 2. Max, how about you? Any fears?
I hope that save transfers isn't a huge headache. I know there was some confusion over whether or not the Zelda games supported cloud saves. And I know there's a whole thing where you basically get a New Game Plus on Tears of the Kingdom. And I think there was some fine print about cloud saves not supported, but they meant that you can't take your second New Game Plus file and transfer it back to an original Switch, though I'm not sure why anyone would actually do that. That said, we've seen Nintendo, I would say, kind of lag behind in the cloud save department, in the save management department in general, and it's always just a really bad feeling when you lose time. And I mean, we all spent countless hours in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and it's kind of nice to have to, hop over to a new system and get to really take it for a spin in that version of the game that you've gotten comfortable in. And I'm sure some people are going to start totally fresh, which I don't blame them. They're great games, but these games in particular, I know there are other ones out there. I'm sure some games will transfer saves no problem. Obviously, if you have a Switch 1 and you put it next to your Switch 2 and plug them in or hook them up or whatever, it'll probably work like normal. Like if you're transferring between a Switch 1 and another Switch 1, that stuff works pretty fine. With rare exceptions, like where you have to download a separate app to transfer your Animal Crossing island. Nintendo always has some kind of weird caveat or fine print or just, odd workaround for this kind of thing. And I hope that it's not a widespread headache for a lot of people, because it's always just it's a little bit of a bitter feeling to just be like, oh, well, there goes my time spent.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think my biggest fear with the Nintendo Switch 2 launch is that Best Buy might still cancel my pre-order. Got 7 days to go. I keep checking my email. So far, it seems okay. I should be able to walk in on next Thursday and pick up my Switch 2. There's another issue that I know is a concern for a lot of people out there. I don't really know how I feel about it. It doesn't really affect me, but I get it. And it's the game key cards. It's the fact that I think pretty much all third-party Nintendo Switch 2 games, there's a retail package with a cartridge inside, but the game is not on the cartridge. It's when you insert the cartridge in your Switch 2, it'll trigger a download from the eShop. I've been 95% digital with my game library for years now, but I totally understand the concern for people who want, for game preservation, want peace of mind to know that they will be able to access these games, in perpetuity into the future. If you were to ask me, would you like assurance that you can always, pop this cartridge in and play your game forever or not? I'd say, well, obviously the former. So I totally understand that's a real concern for a lot of people. And I hope it just doesn't become the new norm.
As long as Nintendo doesn't pull any of the sort of Super Mario 3D All-Stars limited release nonsense that they did last generation. That was one that I specifically sought out the cartridge for that reason. I was like, I need to just hang on to this forever just in case. So hopefully that's not going to be a thing they do anymore.
It drives me nuts because it's it completely defeats the purpose. Like the whole idea of having a card is to have the data on it, right? Like that's, if you're not going to do that, then sell a piece of paper and save a tree, or I guess save a sea turtle with microplastics or whatever. Like it's just, we're at this point where everything's digital. I get that, we're going to be presumably paying the same price for a digital project versus a physical product, but it's just sort of a waste of it's a waste of energy to take a thing that doesn't have anything on it and put it in a store so someone can put it in their Switch just to download it. It's such a weird roundabout thing to do. And, presumably that's because, what is it? Nintendo has added charges for using this proprietary media that third-party devs don't really want to trifle with. But yeah, it just seems like a thing that needs to be sorted out.
Yep. Agreed. Well, I hope Nintendo Switch 2 launch day goes smoothly for everyone who pre-ordered and who's hoping to maybe find one at retail. Thursday, June 5th is the big day here in the States. Godspeed, everyone. I've got a poll for you all to vote on for our next episode, which won't be next week. I'll comment on that in a second. But we want to know, what is your favorite Nintendo console generation? And we have 6 options available usually on these polls. So I have omitted the Wii U generation because I'm taking an educated guess that not too many people will pick the Wii U. If the Wii U is your favorite Nintendo console generation, you are a unique individual.
Play more Nintendo games would be our advice for that.
Yeah. So which would it be? Switch, Wii, GameCube, N64, Super Nintendo, or NES? Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live, and we'll share the results with you next episode, just like we can with last episode's poll. We were asking, what is your most anticipated summer 2025 game? And fittingly for this episode, the winner was Mario Kart World with 28% of the vote. That was followed by Metal Gear Solid Delta, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Mafia the Old Country, then Donkey Kong Bonanza, and then poor Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 in last place. Although I'm looking forward to revisiting at least 3. I never played Tony Hawk 4. Okay, some housekeeping. Over at Humble, you may want to check out the Xbox Games Studio Publisher Bundle. For just $5, you get Broken Age, Sunset Overdrive, and Battletoads. And for $10, you get those 3 games, plus Wasteland 3, Quantum Break, As Dusk Falls, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and Age of Empires Definitive Edition. And as always, proceeds go to charity. And not only is next week the launch of Nintendo Switch 2, it's the return of IGN Live here in downtown Los Angeles, Saturday and Sunday, June 7th and 8th. So you should come hang out with us. It'll be a huge party all weekend. We'll be doing a lot of our IGN shows live. There's going to be hands-on time with unreleased games. We'll have lots of celebrity interviews and panels and games industry personalities. It's going to have a watch party for the Xbox Showcase. And we're going to have tons of giveaways, like seriously, so many giveaways. You will not walk away empty-handed. It's going to be great. So you can go to ign.com/live to get tickets. And as a special treat for you, if you use code NGCWGuest, that'll get you a free ticket. You're welcome. And that also means that next week, since all this is going down, there won't be an episode of Next Gen Console Watch next week. I will return in 2 weeks, and we'll have the Nintendo Switch 2 launch to actually talk about. And Ryan, I suspect some interesting details that came out of the Xbox Showcase.
I hope so.
So that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to both Max and Ryan. Thank you to Jobert and everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Daemon. We'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about literal next gen hardware. We'll see you then. This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by myself, Daemon Hatfield, and Jobert Atienza. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network.